Hi, Rachel here for Wonky Chart. Worried about the federal budget deficit? The federal budget deficit is on just about everyone's hot currents list this year. Opinions on what to do about the red ink run from let's do nothing but tax to let's do nothing but cut. Is either extreme on the opinion scale practical or even possible? Let's see what the numbers say. We'll tackle the let's tax our way out of this argument in the next update. Today, let's concentrate on the let's cut our way out of it argument. One way federal spending is broken down is into discretionary and mandatory classifications. All discretionary means is that Congress must appropriate funds for a department or agency every year, or it has to shut down. Each piece of the bureaucracy operates at Congress's discretion. The bulk of the Department of the Interior's budget, for example, is classified as discretionary. Mandatory spending is mandatory. Congress doesn't have much say on how much is spent. Amounts are set by law. The only way Congress can alter mandatory spending is to change the law. Social Security and Medicare are the largest blocks of mandatory spending in the federal budget. Most agencies have both types. How much? It depends. The Department of Health and Human Services has considerable mandatory spending because it administers so many health programs like Medicaid. Defense? Almost all discretionary. This pie chart breaks down 2011 spending into mandatory and discretionary. Red slices mandatory, blue for discretionary. Looking at it in percentages, defense and non-defense, which means everything else besides defense, together make up 37% of all spending. When politicians complain about runaway spending, they're usually talking about non-defense discretionary spending. Let's conduct an experiment to see if we can balance the budget employing only cuts. We'll use 2011 as our laboratory because those are hard numbers. We'll do a little backwards accounting to see if we can solve this. This is our scoreboard. The green column on the right is our target. Our task is to reduce the left-hand column to the height of the green one. Manage that, and the budget is balanced. Let's start with something easy. Afghanistan and Iraq. Public opinion polls say that a majority of Americans of all political persuasions think it's time to come home. Let's do it. Say we brought the troops home by the end of 2010. We just cut $159 billion off the deficit. We're off to a good start. That's all we'll do on defense. We'll concentrate on non-defense, the easiest area to change. The National Endowment for the Arts is controversial in some quarters. We'll axe that. Not much. Add National Public Radio. Nothing. The reason is the magnitude of the amounts involved. $154 million is far from insignificant. Unless you compare it to $1.3 trillion, then it is. If we're going to solve this, we're going to have to 86 the budget scalpel and get out our fiscal chainsaw. The EPA, a sometimes controversial federal agency that was created in 1970, will take its entire discretionary budget, which essentially puts the agency out of business. The Department of Education, this is another federal agency that's often criticized. Let's take its discretionary budget. Look, we could keep doing this, but we'll all be here for hours. We have to come up with $1.3 trillion. The entire non-defense discretionary outlays are only $647 billion. If we take it all, we're still around $500 billion away from balancing the budget. It's also probably wise to look at what we cut before we permanently apply our savings to the deficit. A quick look at some of the victims of our budget chainsaw massacre. Yes, we just did that. Medicare and Medicaid clinics gone. The CDC in Atlanta gone. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which tracks hurricanes and tsunamis, it's gone. Even the Fish and Wildlife Service, that's history. The national parks are closed. The Forest Service and Wildland Fire Bureau, they manage our national forests and fight wildfires, they've been chopped. Almost all housing assistance for the poor is defunct. We no longer have embassies overseas because we have defunded the State Department. We're also in for some potholes because we've seriously cut the Department of Transportation's highway repairs budget. The U.S. Marshals and the Witness Protection Program, gone. So is ATF, the federal prison system. VA hospitals are closed. No one and no money is left to manage Arlington National Cemetery. FEMA is history. The FBI, the CIA, gone. Concerned about immigration, customs and immigration are gone. Even the U.S. Patent Office no longer exists. Well, that's quite a list. But what's left? The military, most of the Department of Homeland Security, and the mandatory programs. What's left in the mandatory programs? Here's a list. I'll leave it to you to find the other $500 billion. Silly? Yes, of course it is. There's a serious point to be made. It's simply not possible to balance the budget with cuts alone, without essentially dismantling our government and turning it into a shell. We have a military, Social Security, Medicare, and not much else. The arithmetic simply doesn't work. When we try the "we can do it with taxes alone" approach in a few weeks, I suspect we will find some serious drawbacks there as well. Check back soon.